Hi friends, my name is Aqil Ahmed, and in this particular video tutorial we will see how to migrate data from MySQL to SQL Server or from SQL Server to MySQL using SSIS. So the agenda of today's video tutorial is that we will see like how we can migrate data from MySQL to SQL Server, then we will migrate data from SQL Server to MySQL table, and then finally we will migrate data from CSV file to MySQL table. So let's jump to the demo. So for migrating the data to the MySQL, we will be using the SSIS data flow components from the DevArt, and they are also the sponsor of this particular video as well. So they provide the SSIS data flow components for different sources, Oracle, DB2. So for a lot of different sources, they provide the components. So they are efficient components and you can just directly drag and drop them into your data flow and then you can make use of them. So to download the components, you can just simply click on the download button, and then there is an option here, SSIS data flow components for MySQL. So you can click on the download and it will actually download all different type of components for MySQL, for Oracle, for majority of the sources. So you can simply click on the download. So I actually already downloaded the components. So this is the exe file, devart ssis.exe. So I can right click and I can click on run as administrator, click yes. So this will start the installation wizard which can install the devart ssis data flow component. So there are some benefits of using those components, like in MySQL, even for example if you are using the ODBC drivers, then you need to use the ODBC source, okay, and in the ODBC source there is no option of using the variables. However, in these components there are an option to use the variable. For example, in MySQL there is an option to use the variable in the MySQL source. So you can easily get the differential data, only the required data that you need, okay. And there are some lookup components as well for MySQL which are not available, of course, in the SSIS. So let's do the installation. So we need to click on next, and then I accept the agreement, click next, and then again click next, and then you need to click on install. So this is pretty straightforward, and now the devart ssis data flow components, they will be installed on your machine. So you can let the installation continue. So now it's installing the assemblies into the global assembly cache. So ideally all the DLLs, those you are going to use, they should be installed in the GAC if you are going to use them in the SSIS. So that's what it's doing right now. Alright, so the installation of the devart data flow component is successful. We can open the management studio. So I can open the SQL Server management studio. Alright, so let's connect to the SQL Server instance and I can expand the databases. Okay, so these are the databases on my machine, and now let's connect to the MySQL. So I can open the MySQL Workbench 8.0, and it contains few databases. So I can click on local instance MySQL, and then it will connect to the available databases. So these are the databases available, and if you see, we got the test database here, and in the test database we got some tables like employee table we got. So if you select the data from the employee table, so it contains 1000 records, okay, and this is the data. So you can see, yeah, this is the data for the employee table. So now what we will do, that we will migrate the data from the employee table from the test database into a SQL Server database. So here I can create a fresh database. So I can write the create database query here, create database, and I can call the database as devart. So I can click on execute and it should create a fresh database here, okay. So a new database got created. Now in this particular database I want to migrate the data from the MySQL, okay. So now let's open the Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio 2019. You can use any version of the Visual Studio that you have installed on your machine. Now I can do create a new project. Now I can select the integration services project, this template. I can provide the project name here, and from the location I can select the location, like where I want to create the SSIS package. So I want to create the SSIS package at this location. I can click create. So this will create the blank project for us where we can write the code for migrating the data. So the blank SSIS package has been created. Okay, so now we can start working on writing the SSIS package to migrate data from MySQL to the SQL Server. So to migrate the data, we will be using the data flow task. So we can just drag and drop the data flow task into the control flow window, and this data flow task we will call it MySQL to SQL Server. Okay, and I can go inside the data flow task. Now if you go to the components, so and if you click on the common components, then you should see the DevOps components here. So you can see that they have a lot of components like for Asana, for Azure, for DB2, Google Ads, Salesforce, so they have a lot of components, and it saves a lot of time to write the code for them. And even if you are writing the code, then these are the they can be very efficient, and if you are writing this code in C#, then it can take tons of time to write the code. So if you type MySQL here, then you can see the components related to the MySQL. So we have the MySQL source, we have MySQL destination, we have MySQL lookup. So the MySQL source will be used to fetch data from the MySQL. The MySQL destination can be used to insert the data into the MySQL server, and the MySQL lookup can be used to look up the data at the MySQL level. And they have their MySQL connection managers as well. So now because we want to migrate data from MySQL to the SQL server, so we will be using the MySQL source. So we can just drag and drop the MySQL source into the data flow task, and then we can configure the MySQL source here. So I can right click and click edit. So this is the MySQL source editor. Okay, in the query window we need to write the query, but before doing that we need to make a connection to the MySQL. So from the drop down you can select create new connection manager. Okay, and then you need to provide the information about the server name, port, username, password, all these things. Okay, so let me open the MySQL workbench, and if I click on database and click on connect to database, so it will display the server name here. So host name is the server name. So I can copy the server name from here and I can paste it here. And if I look at the port number, so the port number is 3306. So that is fine here. Now the username was root here. Okay, and I can type my password for the MySQL, and I can click save my password. Now if you click on the drop down, so you can see all the databases available at the MySQL. So I need to migrate data from the test database, so I can select this database and then I can click test connection. So it's saying that test connection succeeded, which is great. So I can click OK, and then I can click OK. So as soon as I click OK, so it can display the database name here, and if I click on plus, so it is displaying all the tables available in the test database. So if you see in the test database, so these are the tables. Okay, and I want to migrate data from the employee table. So from here, if I click on the employee table, so you can also see all the columns as well. So suppose I want to write a select query to select data from employee table, so I can just simply drag and drop the table name into the query, and this will actually automatically generate the select query like select star from employee. Now if you want to preview the data as well, then you can click on this preview data option, and this will preview the data from the MySQL table, and which is a great option here. Now I can close this one, and on the right side it is also displaying all the variables as well, like it's displaying all the system variables, and it can display the user defined variable as well. So the user defined variable, they can make your SQL query dynamic, right? Suppose you want to fetch data modified after a specific date, then you can easily make use of the variables here, and then you can get only the required data. Otherwise, if you are using the ODBC source to get the data from the MySQL, then you cannot make the query dynamic in the ODBC source, because you cannot use the variables in the ODBC source. Okay, so you need to fetch all data from the MySQL, and if the data is huge, then it can take a lot of time. But here you can make use of the variable, and then you can select only the data that is required. So for now we will select all data, but I will also show you how you can use the variables as well to select only the required data. So now it's selecting all data from the employees table, so I can click OK, and now our MySQL source has been configured. Now we want to insert the data into the SQL Server table, so we can use the OLEDB destination for that. So I can just simply drag and drop the OLEDB destination into the data flow task, and then I can connect the MySQL source with the OLEDB destination. And now I can right click and edit the OLEDB destination. I can click new to create a connection manager. So I can click new, and I can copy the SQL Server instance name from here. So I can copy the SQL Server instance name. Now I can paste the instance name here, and I need to select the database name. So the database name is this one, Devart. So the test connection succeeded. Click OK, OK, OK. Now from data access mode, we will select table or view fast load, and then I can click new to create a new table. So our table name at the MySQL side is employee. So we can name the table employee here as well, and it has selected the data type according to the data type in the MySQL. Now I can click OK, and I can go to the mappings. So it has automatically mapped the input columns with the destination columns. So I can click OK. So the RSSIS package is ready for migrating the data from the MySQL to the SQL Server. Now I can click on the start button so that it can execute the SSIS package. So you can see that the migration of the data from the MySQL to the SQL Server is successful, and I can go to the SSMS and I can refresh the tables. So you can see a new table here, employee table, and if I select the data from this particular table, so you can see the data migrated into the SQL Server table. So that's great. Now let me just truncate this table. I just want to show you something. So let me truncate the table. Okay, so now the table is empty. Now if you see from the MySQL side, the date is I think the first 500 records, the date is 2021, and for the last 500 records, the date is 2024 and something. Okay, so now suppose the data already got migrated, and now suppose I want to fetch the data only after a specific date. So how we can do that? Okay, so for that particular thing, we can use the variables. So I can just create a variable here, and I can call it as modified date, and the data type I can take as a string. Okay, and now I want to need to pass a value to that particular variable. So suppose I can copy the date from here. Okay, and I can paste the date here. Now suppose I want to fetch data after 2023. Okay, 2023 December 12 and 31st. Okay, so now the data is starting from the 1st January 2024 should come. Okay, so for that particular thing, I can give like 59 and then 59. Okay, so this is the last second, okay, of the 2023 31st December. Okay, so now I want to get data starting from the 2024. Okay, so how I can do that? I can right click and modify the MySQL source, and here I can put a where clause, where, and I want to see the column name in the employee table. So the column name is the dated. Okay, so I can write where dated is greater than, and now I want to make use of the variables. So if I expand the user variable, then I can see the modified date here. So I can simply drag and drop the modified date into the query. So you can see that the modified date got added here. Okay, so that's great. Now I can click OK, and now I can rerun the SSIS package. So now ideally it should select all the data starting from 2024. So it should skip the first 500 records from the MySQL. So you can clearly see that it has skipped the first 500 records, and according to the date that we passed through the variable, this date, it has selected the data for the 2024. So now if I do the select star from here, so you can see that it selected the data only for a specific dates. Okay, now if you only want to get the latest data from the MySQL, then you can get the max modified date from the SQL Server, assign the value to the SSIS variable, and that variable, you can pass to the MySQL source, so it can get only the new data. So this was about migrating the data from MySQL to the SQL Server. Okay, now let's do vice versa. That now let's migrate the data from the SQL Server to MySQL. Okay, so here I have several databases, like I have school database. So suppose I want to migrate the data from one of the table from the school database into the MySQL. So maybe I can see any table. Maybe I can see the course table. So I have this table course. So suppose I want to fetch data from this table, okay, and I want to insert that data into the MySQL. So I can go back to the MySQL. So first of all, I need to make a table here for the course. How we can make the table? So I can right click here, create table as new query window. This will generate the create table statement. Okay, so we can remove this primary key. This is not required. I'm just going to create a simple table for now. Okay, at the MySQL, and we don't need that dbo dot as well, and we can replace the starting bracket with an empty space, and we can replace the closing bracket as well with an empty space. Okay, so this is the basic query for the create table statement for the MySQL. So I can paste the query here and I can click on execute. So this has created the course table at the test database. So I can refresh the table, and now the course table got created here. So if I select the data from the course table, so now the course table is empty right now. Okay, now let's migrate the data from the course table from SQL Server to the MySQL. So I can just drag and drop a data flow component, and I can call it as SQL Server to MySQL. Okay, and then because our source is a SQL Server, so we can use the OLEDB source here. So I can write OLE here, and I can just drag and drop the OLEDB source into the data flow task, and then we can configure the OLEDB source. I can make a new connection here to the school database. So I can get the server name from here, copy the server name, and then I can provide the server name. From the database name, I can select the school database, click OK. Okay, now from the table I can select the course table. Okay, so these are the columns. If you want to preview data, so you can preview data as well. So I can click OK. Now to insert the data into the MySQL, I can write MySQL here, and I can use the MySQL destination. So I can connect the OLEDB source with the MySQL destination, and then I can configure the MySQL destination. First of all, from the connection manager, you need to choose the connection manager, Devart MySQL connection manager. Okay, and then you can go to the component properties, and from the table name, you need to select the table name to which you want to insert the data to. So our table name is the course here, so I can select this table. So the operation is bulk insert, which is very fast to insert the data into the table. Now I can go to the column mapping, so it has automatically mapped the input column with the destination column. So I can click OK. So we have configured the data flow task to migrate the data from the SQL Server to MySQL. Now I can right click and I can click on execute task. So either you can do execute task, or you can run the whole SSIS package as well, and it can insert the data. So you can see that it has migrated the data, the 7 records from SQL Server to MySQL. I can go back to the MySQL and I can rerun the select query. So you can see that the data got migrated successfully. So this was pretty straightforward, that you can easily migrate the data. Now let's migrate the data from the CSV file to the MySQL. So now let's migrate the data from the CSV file to the MySQL. So for migrating any kind of data, we will be using the data flow task. So I can call it as CSV file to MySQL. Okay, and I can go inside the data flow task. So our CSV file is situated at this location, D files, and this is the file cust data. So if I open this particular file, so it contains the data for customers, and I think it contains 1000 records. So it contains like ID, first name, last name, address, and country. Okay, so these are the columns. Now I can go back to the data flow task, and we can use the flat file source, because the flat file source can be used to read the data from the CSV file or TXT file. So I can right click, edit. Now I can make a new flat file connection manager. I can call the connection manager as flat file, and then I can browse the file. So the location will be D files, and I can select CSV files from here, cus data, open. If you click on preview, so the data seems good here, so I can click OK. OK. So we have configured the flat file source. Now we need to configure the MySQL destination. So I can type MySQL here, and then I can drag and drop the MySQL destination into the data flow task. Then I can connect the flat file source with the MySQL destination. So first of all, we need to create the table with these columns: ID, first name, last name, address, and country. Okay. So what I can do, I can create a table here, create table, and I can call the table as cust data. Okay, and then ID int, then first name varchar 50, then last name, okay, varchar 50, and then the address varchar 100, and then country varchar 100. Okay, so this will be the create table statement for the MySQL. So I can paste the create table statement here and execute the query. So the cust data table got created, and if you refresh the tables, refresh all, so the cust data table is there now. Okay, and it should not contain any data as of now because we just created this particular table. Yeah, so the table is empty. So now I can close this particular file and I can go back to the SSIS package. Now I can configure the MySQL destination. I can select the connection manager, Dewart SQL connection. I can go to the properties, and from the table name I can select that cust data table, and from the column mapping it has automatically mapped the columns because the name of the columns are same. So I can click OK. Now I can right click and execute tasks. So it should read all 1000 records from the flat file and should migrate those records into the MySQL table. So you can see that the migration of the data was successful. So the component, they are working absolutely great. Okay, and yeah, so the data got migrated successfully. Yeah, so I think this was about like migrating the data from the MySQL to SQL Server, or vice versa, or migrating the data from the CSV file to MySQL. So they have tons of components available for different cases, like for Oracle, DB2, for a lot of different sources and destinations. So you can just download the trial version for 30 days and you can see like how it goes, So I will provide the link of this particular website, the Dewart website, into the description of the video, so you can go to the website and you can just try the components. So I think that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video, then please click the like button. Do subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and click on all so that you will be notified every time I put a new video. Thank you so much.